Hello everyone, today we're back on the updates 1.79 dev server, and I thought I'd have a look at the FJ-4B. Now just understand before I get into this, I'm not known as a jet pilot. I personally would refer to you to many other YouTube creators and Twitch creators who are jet pilots, so just go, if you want a really solid opinion on something like this, it is much better to go talk to them instead of listen to me. But instead, what I'm going to do is give my own overview, and if you agree with what I say or if you disagree, there's always a comments section there, so chuck it in. The first thing to look at is the armor profile of the FJ-4B. We have some bulletproof glass of 60mm, and then of course the backing of the seats being 12.7, so nothing to really write home about. If we look at the X-ray view, it will show the main power plants behind this machine. You're looking at a Wright J65W16A jet with 3,410 kgf and also a mass of 1,270 kg. So a heavy engine, but also one which creates a hell of a lot of power, and it needs it for the bomb loads that it actually has. If we look at the tech tree in aviation, what we'll find is it comes after the F3D, so you actually have a reason to grind out this thing now. They dropped it to 7.0, they dropped its price, they dropped its research, so go and get it if you want access to the FJ-4B, which is going to be a machine which, if the radar AA is either nerfed or people don't take it, is going to be incredibly good in ground forces and very good in aerialistic. And the reason for this is because of the amount of ordnance it can use. So the first thing is it has 6 hard points. You can see them already with these Hydra 70 rockets, and on these hard points you can house yourself 6 250 pounders, 6 500 pounders, 2 1000 pounders, 2 2000 pounders, or 114 Hydra 70 rockets, which is what we have loaded here, just to have a look and see what they test out. This is the biggest, I suppose you'd call it, secondary weapon load you can take on this thing, and it's backed up by 4 20mm guns, which have 576 ammunition, between them. You start off with heavy APIT, which I think is fine when it comes to this, but if you want a little bit more punching power, once you get the offensive 20mm weaponry upgrade, you're either going to go universal or stealth. I don't think you take air targets, just because heavy, you need a little bit more of a punch with the penetration, so I think stealth or universal will do you well. It may change though, and air targets may come back in a big way. For me, flight performance is very important in something like this. What I see this as is a jet first and then a bomber second, especially when you try and upgrade. When it comes out and you decide not to get all of these secondary armaments on it, maybe it's a little bit more useful. What we will do actually is just take off these secondary armaments just to see how it flies without them. It's going to be obvious how it's going to fly with 100 rockets on it. It's going to fly incredibly sluggishly, so instead what we'll do is we won't have ME-262s. We'll have something a little bit different. I mean, at 9.0 you're basically looking at sabers, right? Unfortunately, I don't seem to have sabers here, which is kind of weird. We'll just do the C2B for now. We'll do 5 on 5, just so we can fly about a little bit. So what you're getting out of this machine is a jet fighter which has a hell of a lot of secondary armaments, which is going to be very influential either in aerialistic, if you get a few of them together to take out ground targets, or in ground realistic, because the penetration on the rockets is good enough. I think it's around about 150 to be able to penetrate everything that you will find. So let's get up to speed first. Being able to talk about this thing at 350 kilometers an hour isn't really fair to it, so we'll go in a straight line. This thing can go over 1,000 kilometers an hour without any issues. As I talked about, it has the 420mm right there. It does have a full cockpit, and I tell you what, this cockpit is absolutely beautiful. It's a wonderful cockpit. The jet cockpits are always nice in this game, even if the plane itself is a little bit ugly. The air intake, well, it looks like a fish, to be honest. And now we're up to a little bit of a faster speed, we can see the roll rate is slightly better on it. But overall, let's get some more speed. Screw it. Overall, with the amount of cannon ammunition this thing has, it feels like the survivability of it goes up. Or no, that's the wrong word. Longevity of it goes up. So if you are in an extended battle, you have plenty of ammunition that will be able to keep you going. Now, the elevator is incredibly stiff at these speeds, but then again, for the majority of planes it is. The roll rate, I suppose, is not very good. I'm comparing it to stuff like the G91 and the Sabre. The G91 being at 8.0 and the Sabre being at 9.0, and also with the new F40 and the Canadian Air Sabre, which are the two things that you'll fight the most, and the Hunter. So maneuverability is not great. I mean, it can pull pretty hard, but I still think there are other aircraft which can pull harder than it. So you lose quite a lot of energy in the turn though, but compared to other aircraft, I'm not sure. Air brakes, it does have some. It has 4, as you can see, put in a nice little configuration, and they will slow you down incredibly quickly if you let them to. And there we go, the roll rate's a little bit better now. You hear that sound? What do you think of that? Do you think that's better, or do you think that's worse than the sound which you find on the Sabres? We're going to go towards the ME262 as well. That's probably the best idea to do at this point. But yeah, the gun sounds on a lot of vehicles have changed, including a lot of the aircraft and also some of the ground vehicles. This is a new set of cannons that we have in this game. I don't think we have these 20mm on anything else, so it's kind of nice to see them new. And also have a different sound. A lot of the time when stuff like this is added, what you'll find is they'll have a sound which is just a copycat from something else. And now, around about 700, we have a wonderful roll rate in this thing. The acceleration I don't think is as good as some other 9.0 jets, especially when we look at the Canada Air Sabre. So that kind of worries me a little bit when we think about it, or when I have a look at it, I should say. But obviously against ME262s, it's going to rip them apart. The question I have is, it's going to be obviously very good at ground attack. Is it going to be good at jet killing? And that is something that I'm going to have to leave to the professionals, since, to be honest, I'm not very good at it. Way up, calm down. The turn at medium speeds, I would call them, 600 to 800 seems very good. The elevator itself is incredibly responsive at these tiers, and the roll rate is incredibly good as well. So overall, the maneuverability feels great, the longevity feels great, so it may be a nice aircraft to grind out. Remember, this is fully spaded though. That's some hits. We are using, I believe, default belts right now, so just take that into account. Just do a little bit of the elevator maneuver. Rudder is incredibly responsive, but in most aircraft it is. It seems like you do lose a lot of speed in the turn, or at least it feels like it. I know a lot of jets, some of them do. The Votor is one of them, but it takes a year to turn in that thing. But stuff like the G91 and the Canada Air, they do not lose a lot of speed in the turn. The Hunter does, and it gets away with it because of its speed. But with this thing, it's going to be interesting to see if its speed can keep up with that idea, and I don't think it can. Let's just take off a wingtip. There we go. But yeah, overall it feels nice to fly for a jet. Overall, the main issue I have with planes like this is what impact it can have on the game if it's allowed to be. Same with like the AD4 and now this and now the new IL-28 and other machines where they have a hell of a lot of guns behind them. Well, not guns, but they have a hell of a lot of secondary armaments, which makes them incredibly good in ground forces. So let's say your team doesn't have any AA. Let's say nobody wants to take it, or, you know, somebody has rushed the cap zone and then got in a machine like this. Well, with over 100 rockets with decent penetration, they're gonna pretty much annihilate anything that they're gonna come across, and they're gonna have like 80 or 90 rockets to spare. So a lot of machines, especially tanks, oops, I have ran out of cannons. a lot of tanks do not have a lot of top armor, so anything over 100mm of penetration is going to be able to go through it without any issues. It does feel nice to fly. I mean, I'm comparing it to stuff like the Hunter and the Votor when I'm thinking about, because this is obviously not going to be a Hunter style fighter where you're going to have to boom and zoom hard in it. This to me seems like a middling fighter where it's not the best at turning, it's not the best at energy fighting, but it is good enough to be combat effective, at least compared to something like an F3D. And anything over 650, 700, it feels very nice to fly. And it's not too heavy at around 1,000, it's about what you would expect when it comes to it. But let's just take this guy out. Obviously the velocity on the 20mm, incredibly good, meaning that shooting down enemies shouldn't be too hard. The guns really remind me of the Sabre's guns, the 20mm that you find on the cannons of the last Sabre in the American tree, apart from slightly less velocity, and also they don't overheat in 2 seconds. You can see you can fire a hell of a lot of rounds of this before they start overheating, so that's really, really nice to see. But yeah, overall, I think it's going to be pretty good. It's definitely better than some of the other jets that we've had added to the game recently. And I think you'll see more of these flying about than the naval tree. But then again, for America, that's not saying much. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.